The story of the fallen angels and their forbidden love with human women is one of the most mysterious and dramatic tales in ancient texts. These celestial beings, once devoted to serving God, abandoned their divine duties for the allure of earthly beauty. Their union led to the birth of the Nephilim, giant, powerful beings who wreaked havoc on the world. As chaos spread, God's wrath manifested in the Great Flood, wiping out these unnatural creations. But what happened to the women who loved these angels? Their fate, sealed by Archangel Michael, was even more terrifying than the flood itself. The celestial order was once unshaken, an eternal harmony resounding through the heavens. The angels, radiant and pure, stood in unwavering devotion to the Almighty, their voices woven into the great symphony of divine will. But among them were those whose hearts, once untouched by earthly desires, began to stir with something new, something forbidden. From their lofty perches, they gazed upon the world below, upon the creatures of flesh and soul, and among them the daughters of men, whose beauty was unlike anything they had known. It was not merely the fairness of their forms that entranced the watchers, but the light in their eyes, the fire of their spirits, the fragile yet undeniable strength with which they embraced life's sorrows and joys. The angels, fashioned to be above such things, found themselves longing not for power, not for dominion, but for something as delicate and consuming as love. At first they resisted. They turned their faces away, seeking solace in prayer and the remembrance of their purpose. Yet the longing did not abate. It grew like a whisper in the soul, a quiet rebellion that no command could quell. The heavens, once an abode of perfect peace, became a prison, its golden light now a reminder of all they were forbidden to feel. One by one they made their choice. Casting aside their wings of light, they fell, not in battle, not in disgrace, but in desperate yearning. The descent was not a swift plunge, but a slow surrender, as though even the sky wept at their departure. They shed their radiance like a fading dawn, stepping into the world of men no longer as messengers of divinity, but as exiles. On earth they found what their hearts had sought, the warmth of mortal embrace, the simple joys of touch and voice and shared laughter. They built homes, they fathered children, beings neither fully angel nor fully human, but something in between, something that should never have been. For a time, they believed love was worth the cost, that even in their fall, they had gained something beyond measure. But heaven does not forget, nor does it forgive lightly. The wrath of the Almighty was not delayed, nor was it gentle. The fallen were hunted, their children condemned as abominations. Where once they had been celestial beings, now they were fugitives, cast adrift between two worlds that would not claim them. The love that had seemed so sacred now bore the weight of judgment, the stain of transgression. Some repented, pleading for mercy, but the gates of heaven remained closed to them. Others, defiant, embraced their exile, vowing never to regret what they had chosen. And yet, whether in sorrow or in rebellion, they all bore the same truth upon their souls. Love, in its purest form, had been their downfall. And so the echoes of their story remain, whispered in the winds and written in the stars. Were they truly sinners, or simply seekers of a love too great for the laws of heaven? Perhaps the answer was lost the moment they fell, when they chose to trade eternity for the fleeting warmth of human touch. Or perhaps in some corner of the universe their love still lingers, a defiant ember, refusing to be extinguished by time or wrath. In the days when the earth was young, and the boundaries between the divine and the mortal were not yet fully set. A forbidden union took place, one that would alter the fate of humanity forever. The celestial beings, the sons of God, gazed upon the daughters of men and found them fair. Against the divine will, they descended from their heavenly stations and took for themselves mortal wives. From these unnatural unions were born the Nephilim, creatures of immense stature and strength, neither fully angel nor fully human, but something caught between heaven and earth. The Nephilim were giants in both body and spirit. Their presence was overwhelming, their voices like rolling thunder, and their steps made the ground tremble beneath them. They were not merely men of great size, but beings imbued with an unnatural vitality, a force beyond human comprehension. Legends whisper of their unmatched prowess in war, their ability to tear through legions as though they were but reeds in a storm. Cities fell before them, their walls crumbling under the weight of their fury. They saw themselves as gods, towering above mere mortals, and in their arrogance, they sought to bend the world to their will. The corruption they wrought upon the earth was immense. With their might came unchecked destruction, and with their power came insatiable hunger, for dominion, for pleasure, for blood. The world, once a place of divine order, became a land of chaos and despair. Humanity, unable to resist their oppressors, cried out for deliverance. Even the angels who had remained faithful to the Most High looked upon the devastation with sorrow, knowing that judgment would soon come. Some have speculated that the Nephilim were not merely a mistake, but an act of defiance, an attempt by the fallen to create a race in their own image, a perversion of the divine order. If humanity was made in the image of God, then what were these beings? They bore the mark of both heaven and earth, yet belonged fully to neither. Could they be redeemed, or were they doomed from the start, their very existence an affront to creation? Yet the might of the Nephilim was not eternal. The heavens do not tolerate corruption forever. The Creator, in his infinite wisdom and justice, saw that the hearts of men had turned wholly to evil, that violence and wickedness filled the land. And so the flood came, a great and terrible cleansing. The waters rose, swallowing cities, leveling mountains, and wiping clean the sins of a world that had strayed too far from its maker. The Nephilim, for all their strength, were not spared. Their bodies, once thought invincible, were swept away like chaff in the wind. Some say their spirits linger still, restless and vengeful, whispering through the ruins of forgotten civilizations. Others believe that remnants of their bloodline persist in the shadows of history, hidden among men, waiting for a time when they might rise again. But what is to be learned from their fall? Perhaps it is a lesson in the dangers of pride, the perils of defying divine law. The Nephilim were mighty, yet they could not stand against the will of the Almighty. They sought to rule, yet in the end, they were cast down like the fallen before them. And so, their story remains, a warning, an echo of a time when heaven and earth collided, and from their union giants walked the land. But no matter how great their strength, no matter how fearsome their power, none could stand against the justice of God. Their might was fleeting, their reign temporary, and their legacy one of ruin. For in the end, it is not power that endures, but righteousness. The world had descended into corruption, a place where violence and wickedness reigned unchecked. Humanity, once fashioned in the divine image, had strayed so far from righteousness that their every thought was steeped in evil. The Nephilim, the mighty ones of old, had taken their place among men, sowing chaos and destruction. The earth groaned under the weight of sin, crying out for justice, and justice would come. The Lord, in his boundless wisdom, saw the depth of humanity's depravity and resolved to cleanse the world. It was not in cruelty that he acted, but in sorrow, for his creation had chosen darkness over light. The heavens wept as the decree was spoken. A great flood would sweep across the earth, washing away the wickedness that had taken root. The breath of life that once filled the land would be silenced, save for those whom God himself would spare. Yet amidst the ruin, there was a man who walked with God, Noah, righteous in his generation, faithful where others had faltered. The Lord, in his mercy, spoke to Noah, commanding him to build an ark of gopher wood, vast enough to house his family and the remnant of every living creature. With obedience that set him apart from his people, Noah toiled day and night, hewing timber, sealing cracks, shaping the vessel that would be the salvation of all God willed to preserve. Mockers surrounded him, laughing at his labor, scorning the warnings of impending judgment. But Noah did not waver. His hands, guided by divine instruction, continued their work. The sky, once clear, began to darken. The time had come. When the ark stood ready, the Lord commanded the beasts of the earth and the birds of the sky to come forth in pairs, and they entered the great vessel, drawn by an unseen hand. Noah and his family, his wife, his sons and their wives, stepped inside as well, and the Lord himself shut the door. Then the heavens opened, and the fountains of the deep burst forth. The rain fell, unrelenting. Rivers swelled beyond their banks. The seas roared, and the land was swallowed by the furious tide. Cities crumbled beneath the onslaught, and mountains disappeared beneath the waves. The wicked cried out, clawing at the rising waters, but mercy had already been given, and justice now took its course. The Nephilim, those mighty and rebellious beings, were no match for the wrath of the Almighty. They too were swept away, their dominion shattered, their names lost to the flood of judgment. For 40 days and 40 nights, the deluge raged on. The ark alone remained, lifted upon the waters by the will of God, a vessel of divine preservation amidst the vast emptiness of destruction. And then, as suddenly as it began, the storm ceased. The Lord, in his compassion, remembered Noah and all that was within the ark. The winds began to blow, carrying away the waters. The peaks of mountains emerged, and soon the great vessel came to rest upon Ararat. Noah, stepping forth into a cleansed world, built an altar to the Lord, offering sacrifices of thanksgiving. The scent rose to the heavens, and God, in his infinite grace, set his bow in the sky, a covenant of peace, a promise that never again would the earth be destroyed by flood. The rainbow stood as a testimony, a sign of divine mercy, tempering divine justice. Thus, the world was given a new beginning, not by its own merit, but by the mercy of God. Noah and his descendants would go forth, multiplying and filling the earth anew. Yet the memory of the flood would remain, a solemn reminder that while God is abundant in mercy, he is also a God of justice. And those who walk in his ways shall find refuge, even in the storm. The tale of the flood is more than a story of wrath. It is a testament to the balance of justice and grace, a narrative of redemption woven into the fabric of human history. It reminds us that though the world may falter, God's faithfulness endures, and his covenant stands eternal. Bound in chains, cast into the abyss, the fallen angels linger in eternal darkness, severed from the world they once sought to shape. Their rebellion, once fueled by defiance and desire, has led only to confinement and silence. The heavenly radiance that once adorned them has long since faded, leaving behind only shadows of what they were. Yet even in their imprisonment, echoes of their past deeds reverberate across the mortal realm, reaching the hearts of those they left behind, their wives, their lovers, their accomplices in forbidden passion. The women who once embraced the love of these celestial beings now bear the full weight of their choices. Some grieve, tormented by the knowledge that their beloved ones are lost beyond recall. They remember whispered words beneath silvered skies, the touch of hands not meant for the earth, the promise of eternity that has turned to dust. Their sorrow is a heavy shroud, wrapping them in the consequences of their defiance. These women were not merely victims of celestial intrigue, but willing participants in a love that defied divine decree. Now they find themselves cursed to live with the aftermath, cast out, ostracized, burdened by an inheritance of sorrow. Yet among them, there are those who refuse to kneel before their remorse. Some embrace their fate with a bitterness that time has failed to erode. Nama, a name whispered with reverence and fear alike, remains unbowed. She does not weep for the angel she lost, nor does she seek absolution for the sin she never considered a sin. To her, love was not a crime, but a declaration of self-sovereignty, a rejection of a law that sought to control her desires, her destiny. In her heart, she harbors neither regret nor guilt, only the smoldering embers of defiance. There is a tragic irony in the fate of these women. While their angelic lovers have been stripped of agency, locked away in the void, the women themselves must navigate a world that has not forgotten nor forgiven. Mortal eyes look upon them with suspicion, whispering accusations of corruption, of unnatural unions that tainted their bloodlines. Generations to come would bear the mark of their choices, descendants caught between the divine and the damned, forever struggling against the shadow of their forebears. Yet what of the angels themselves? In their silent prison, do they mourn the lives they left behind? Do they rage against their fate? Or do they find solace in the fleeting moments of love they once shared? Perhaps their punishment is not merely the chains that bind them, but the knowledge that they can neither protect nor comfort those they cherished. They have become specters of regret, unable to reach out, unable to change the course of the destiny they set in motion. The celestial rebellion has ended, but its ripples continue to disturb the waters of time. From a theological perspective, their story serves as both warning and parable. It speaks to the dangers of overreaching, of transgression against divine order, and yet it also raises questions about the nature of love and free will. Were these unions truly sins, or were they expressions of something beyond rigid decrees? The tale of the fallen angels and their wives is one of passion, of defiance, of consequence. It is neither entirely of heaven nor of earth, but exists in the liminal space between devotion and rebellion. In the end, the fate of the fallen and their lovers is a testament to the weight of choice. Some lament, some rebel, and some simply endure. Yet all are bound by the immutable truth that love, however powerful, is not without consequence. And so, the story continues, whispered in hushed voices, inscribed in ancient texts, lingering in the hearts of those who dare to question the boundaries set before them. In the twilight of divine order, when the heavens still trembled from the echoes of rebellion, the Archangel Michael stood as an unyielding sentinel of righteousness. His blade had severed the bonds of corruption, casting the fallen angels into the abyss, but the scars of their treachery lingered upon the earth. The corruption had seeped deep, entwining itself with humanity. And nowhere was this more evident than in the hearts of the women who had succumbed to the whispers of the exiled. These women, beguiled by forbidden radiance, had forsaken their mortal vows and entwined themselves with the fallen, surrendering to an embrace that defied celestial law. They had danced in the shadows of ruined sanctuaries, their laughter woven with the music of blasphemy, their souls darkened by the forbidden love they had chosen. And so their punishment was decreed, not by wrath alone, but by a justice that sought to mirror their crime. Under the command of the Almighty, Michael descended upon the world, his form wreathed in divine light. With a voice like the roar of the storm, he pronounced their fate. Their beauty, which had once lured the fallen, would become a snare for the doomed. Their voices, which had whispered pledges to the damned, would become an irresistible lament to the weak-willed. No longer would they walk the earth as women, but as creatures bound to the tides, cursed to sing a song of temptation that led only to ruin. And thus they became the sirens. No longer mortal, yet never truly divine, they dwelled upon jagged rocks and in hidden depths, their songs drifting over the waters like an elegy for their own lost salvation. The very ocean wept for them, crashing against their prisons, though it could not wash away their sorrow. Sailors, drawn by their ethereal cries, would find themselves ensnared, their ships dashed upon the merciless stones, their souls swallowed by the endless abyss. Yet their suffering was twofold. For each life they claimed, they felt the weight of their own transgressions grow heavier, the faces of the drowned forever etched upon their minds. Their eternity was not merely one of destruction, but of unrelenting remembrance, a torment that echoed through every melody they sang. Their voices, once used in the throes of passion and rebellion, now served as instruments of doom, their song an eternal lament for what they had become. And so, the angels who remained loyal to the divine order took on a new duty, not only to guard the heavens, but to watch over mankind, ensuring that such a calamity would never again unfold. They became silent sentinels, unseen yet ever present, whispering warnings to those who dared to listen. They wove barriers of faith around the hearts of men, striving to fortify them against the alluring pull of corruption. Yet, in the hidden corners of the celestial realms, some questioned the severity of the punishment. Could love, even if misguided, truly be worthy of such an eternal fate? Was there no redemption for the sirens, no means by which their sorrow could be undone? Some murmured that perhaps in the distant future, a soul would rise to challenge the decree, to plead for mercy upon the forsaken. But until that day, the sirens remained bound to their lament, their voices rising and falling with the waves, forever caught between what they had been and what they had become. And so the legend endures, a warning carried upon the winds and whispered through the pages of time. Beware the song of longing, for it may be the cry of the condemned. Beware the beauty that beckons, for it may be the mask of the damned. The sea holds many secrets, but none so tragic as the voices that echo upon its surface, calling, ever calling, for a salvation that may never come. The tragic fate of the fallen angels and their wives serves as a powerful lesson about the consequences of defying divine order. While the Nephilim perished in the great flood, the women who loved these celestial beings faced an even darker punishment, transformed into sirens, forever cursed to lure others into destruction. Their sorrowful existence stands as a haunting reminder of forbidden love and its devastating cost. Meanwhile, the faithful angels continued to guard humanity, ensuring such chaos would never happen again. This ancient tale echoes through time, warning us that some boundaries are never meant to be crossed,